pudding snacks.
What's up, everybody? We are back for another episode of SpoilerBoys.
SpoilerBoys.
Yes, and we are here to spoil episode 2 of Loki season 2. You gentlemen ready to get into it?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you know where we like to start, ladies and gentlemen. Where do we rank this episode? Just in the initial beginning, jokes. I'll start with you.
I'm at an 8.
Okay, got an 8 for jokes. What about you, Gage?
7.
Okay, got a 7 from Gage. I'm at the same place. I'm at a 7 with it. So, all right, we got 1 8, we got 2 7s. So let's just kind of start at the top here. The episode opens with Morbius and Loki. Morbius, yeah, sorry. Morbius.
Mobius.
Mobius. Y'all just prepare. I'm probably gonna do that a lot. But it's Mobius.
Yeah.
I know. Look, it's just one letter off. It's so close.
But it's two completely different people.
It is.
Like...
It very much is. But you know, it's what I do with names. My apologies in advance. But Mobius and Loki have traveled to the late 70s. They're trying to get a bead on Sylvie. And this is, where some information is brought them. There's something here that can help them. Turns out it's X5 who has gone into the movie business or whatever. We don't know just yet. The episode's kind of just starting, but it's just like he's a star in the movie premiere. He's out there shaking hands, kissing babies, the whole 9 yards, having the time of his life until he runs into Mobius and Loki and realizes, oh-ish, I'm in trouble type of deal, and tries to run away and elude them, and a foot chase ensues, and we get to see, Loki doing this magical trickster type of thing again, which was pretty cool, which they do finally catch him and bring him back to the TVA. This is just how everything opens up. What do y'all think about the opening just as it starts? What about you, Gage?
The opening is cool. I'll be frank instead of Gage for a minute. The 7 I'm sitting at, partially, like, something is missing from this episode. Because, like, when this episode opens, they walk through the little time door. It tells you 1977, London, sacred timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Why are these dudes dressed like, why are they dressed like that? Like, they come out in, like, tuxedos, like, fly, like they come out like they know they're going to a movie premiere, like they specifically know they're looking for Brad Wolf, who is X5.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, like I just feel like I thought they were gonna explore that at some point, like in the episode. They were gonna go back and like tell us how they got from
A to B,
where they had to go, or just whatever it is. Because the truth of the matter is, like, it's hella random that they're just like in 1977 and on the sacred timeline, and it's just because, like,
I was a little lost at first. I'm not gonna lie. Like, did I miss something kind of deal?
Here's the thing: the opening is like filled with all kinds of Easter eggs. Like, Zaniac is an old character. Brad Wolf is an actual.
I was gonna ask y'all about that because I know there was stuff there that probably was way over my head. The only one I know of Easter eggs
was like a Thor enemy, like one of Thor's little. We're not even really call him an enemy. We're gonna call him like a side. He was like a side. It was like a little side. So I mean, they got a bunch of Easter eggs and little stuff like that in it, but like, that's not enough to hold me from like, all right, cool. We opened here. Why are we in the 70s? Why, you know what I'm saying? Are we in London? Brad Wolf clearly ain't British. My man is like, you know what I mean? The most American dude out there talking, doing his premiere, whatever. So I'm like, all right, there must be something that led up to this whole and then like when he starts to run and B-15 is like, oh, Brad Wolf, can I have your autograph? And he turns around and she's dressed like she was in the 30s or something. I'm like, what is happening here, bruh? Like, I don't know. It just, I don't know. The opening wasn't terrible. It's just they never circled back to how we got to that place. And that just kind of messed me up. Like, all right, I know we only have 6 episodes. If we get to the end of this episode, like as the episode was going on, I was getting more and more concerned that we weren't gonna double back.
Go back and explain that.
Yeah, and so when the episode ended, and I was just like, "Hey, dog, but how did
how did this all start?"
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand stuff like that, dog. Just that kind of stuff, just like it destroys me when I'm watching something because my expectations are set when you're doing something like that and you're naming the time and the place where we are. You know what I mean? And like what they've been doing with the show from last episode and this episode, where they're being very specific about
the sacred timeline and those branch.
Yeah, whether you're on a branch timeline or a sacred timeline or whatever. And that to me means there's a whole lot of timelines to go through and look for to try to find who you're looking for.
Yeah.
Not just to mention past, present, and future within those timelines. So like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
I was disappointed. What I will say is that having my man Brad Wolf get popped in the chest with a green Loki blast and fly down the steps, I was like, it's been a long time.
Very long time. Very long
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Like we haven't really had a chance to see my man get tricky with it.
Yeah.
And that's what he's supposed to do. He's Loki. He's the trickster guy. He's supposed to get tricky with it. And having the little shadows grab my man up and him, making all the people run up on Slim in the middle. I was like, see this? Yeah, that's okay. Let's let Loki be Loki a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's cool. You know what I mean? But like, we never circled back, so I'm already like,
it's
already down from there.
It's already going down. Yeah. How do you feel the same way, Jokes?
So like that, it didn't bother me as much yet. Like I hope there's like if they do this going forward with the rest of the episodes, going to a branch timeline or somewhere on the sacred timeline, that we're just going to these places for specific things not addressing. I probably will have a problem at that point as we get closer to the end. It didn't bother me as much yet because of the fact, okay, maybe we will get an explanation somehow in here, or this is just going to become another witness protection. I don't know. The one thing that annoyed me, which I was happy we finally saw Loki be Loki, but I'm just sitting here like, why is Loki doing a foot pursuit right now? I'm just like, you could throw one bolt or something and we can just be done with this really quick. Because I don't know about you, looking at Loki, Tom Hiddleston run after this dude, my man barely looked like he was in stride. Like, it looked like he could just put a little extra pep in his step and he would have caught him with no problems at all. But hey, for the sake of the story.
I mean, I will say that Loki walks like a pure pimp, dog. He walks like he's so in his little suit. You know what I mean?
The suit and the jacket is what helps sells it.
That's some 70s swag on that thing or something, man. Like, but you right, Jokes. It's just I was gonna bring it up, but I didn't. But since you brought it up, I feel okay. In the same way that like I complain about certain things when we're watching like Ahsoka, and I'm like, look, my suspension of disbelief within the Star Wars universe is broken because Jedi's just be doing stuff sometimes, and then other times they just don't be doing stuff they could be doing. Just push this push this Bama off an edge.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
No, Loki does not need to foot pursue this man down these alleyways of London. He just doesn't need to. Not even a little bit. Because he can make his shadows grab this guy. So like, why did we do this?
What was the point of all this?
Why we letting Mobius, you know what I'm saying, struggle with the run, bruh? You know what I mean?
But outside of that, like that's where most of my issues had lied. Otherwise, I was cool with everything else for the most part. I'm at the point where I'm waiting to see if there's a reasoning why we were in said time. I know obviously we found dude there. Why were we looking for him specifically there? What tipped us off that my man was
A person
70s movie? Like, I get it. If you left and you was in the middle of a mission and you went AWOL, we gonna come for your ass later. But clearly he had the information they needed. So it was like, why did we get pinpointed right there? So I am with you on that gauge. I feel like there needed to be a little bit more to why we showed up. They're like, but other than that, I really don't have any complaints.
I'm with both of y'all on that. Yes, it was great to see Loki getting his mischief bag and do the tricks and stuff like that again. But yes, there were definitely some things left on the cutting floor. We're not going to get those answers, I feel. It's only 6 episodes, like we said. Like they're just going to keep pushing towards their end goal and not even worry about how they got to that point, I feel like. But they do catch him. They get him back to the TVA. They go put him in timeout or where they're going to interrogate him at. And they take his device that he got because it's been modified. And they're trying to figure out, okay, what's this modification for? What does it do? So, of course, they go see, what's his name, AB? His name was a BB. OB. I knew it was 2 letters, something in the B. Yes. They go see OB.
Let me help with Ouroboros real quick. Let me just help real quick. So, in Ouroboros, if you ever remember seeing, like, it's an image of a snake in a circle, like eating its own tail.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's an Ouroboros. That's what an Ouroboros is. So he's named after, like, cyclical time. Like, it represents, like, time going. Basically, a Mobius is the same thing. It's like that figure 8, the same joint that, like, Tony Stark made when he. So they're both named after things that have to do with time or time repeating itself. And technically, like, an Ouroboros represents the circle of life and time repeating itself. So that's who OB is. And I think that is so important to who this character is and what he means going forward, that I just think that knowing that lends more meaning to what's happening in the show. Now that I've thrown that out there, continue.
Okay, because that is going to be very important, because when they meet him, he's still working on the issue from last episode, which is the time loom. He's still trying to figure that out and get that in order. So he's working on that. They come in with the device. Obi, can you help us? Can you take a look at that? I mean, sure, but is this priority over what I already got going on right now? And they both agree, no, it's not. We'll take care of it on our own. He gives them the booklet. Don't worry, it's all written there. Everything you need to know about it is in the booklet I wrote. And of course they have some little banter about that, like, booklet, memorize it. They go back to sit down, crack open the booklet. They're trying to figure things out. Meanwhile, B-15, Casey are having a discussion about this secret mission to go find Renslayer, which is not that much of a secret. She has to tell him, but he's kind of honed in on something. So of course they go run and tell, Mobius and Loki. Turns out the last message that Renslayer got was from Miss Minutes, which we mentioned last episode. What's going on with Miss Minutes? So we have a mention of her now in this episode. Obviously, there's something there. We're gonna find out more as we go along. But at the same time, while he's giving him that information, he sees the device they had and like, no, this doesn't jam frequencies or nothing like that like you're thinking it does. No, it does something completely different. I'll did you look in the book? And they go back to the book again. Mobius is big, Mobius. But now he's gonna look into it to see, what it does and yada yada yada. In the meantime, we can go interrogate Bradley about this device and see what we can learn if he knows where Sylvie is, such and such. So all 3 of them head down there to start their interrogation, and we get into this scene, which goes pretty much how I expected the first time around. They sit down to interrogate him. They're questioning him in their own ways, and he's just throwing it back at him. He's attacking Loki about, you're really a villain. You're not really this good guy you're pretending to be. Like, I know your history. I know about your moms, what you did. And he's going to, yeah.
Listen, when he brought up moms, I was like, oh, you finna die in this room right now. Like, that was the wrong thing to bring up for Loki.
And he starts attacking Mobius, too, about Mobius' beliefs about about is this what he's supposed to be doing, and wanting to go find like where he's actually from and stuff like that, and you're stupid for the way you think. Like he's really coming at him hard, and Mobius is the one that actually finally snaps and comes at him, and they have to kind of leave and just go reset themselves before trying it again. What did y'all think about this? What about you, Gage?
I mean, look, my 7 is strong, bro.
Okay.
Look, when my man Casey saw them messing with the temp pad, and he was like, "What y'all doing?" I'm like, "Oh, we trying to figure out what it does. It apparently like blocks our trackers." Nah, that's not what. No, it don't. That's not what it does. All right, my man's like, he looking at it. I mean, I can figure it out. It'll take me a little time, but I can figure out what it does. But it definitely don't do that. They like, bet we got to go talk to Brad. But I thought you was leaving the joint with him so he could figure out what's going on. And then they go in the room to interrogate him. And my man's like, what does this temp pad do? No, dog. The temp pad is supposed to be in Casey's
Casey. You're right.
Casey's supposed to be figuring out what it does.
You know what?
Why are you even asking for him?
Hey, listen, that don't actually went over my. You know what?
You're right. Yeah,
I didn't even think about that for a second.
I was like, dog. I thought Casey was on the case. You know what I'm saying? We had in my head, dog. Real talk, like I made up my own little drop. Casey's on the case. I had a name for my man and everything. We gonna figure it out.
He said, "Well, I'm gonna hit him with that one on the next episode."
He's like, "Ooh, my man, Casey on the
case."
They walked in the room. I'm like, I thought Casey was on the case. What are we doing? Yo, so like, listen. I think Brad Wolf X5. For real, I think the way he holds it down in the interrogation room is incredible, though. Like, I just think the way that he picks all three of them apart, he already knows what they do because this is a tactic that he uses. Mm-hmm. Mobius warned them before they go in. It's like, listen, we gotta go in here, but like, he already knows how we do. So like, don't let him get under your skin. He's gonna try to, whatever. And my man immediately just starts plucking. You know what I mean? And it's like, super effective. You know what I mean? And I can't figure out what his actual angle is, like why he's being, you know what I'm saying, the way he is. But I can appreciate him kind of twisting it and looking right at B-15 and being like, ain't you the one that said we all had lives out here and that we was wasting our lives and, whatever? What you mad at? He literally said, what you mad at me for? And I was like, you know what, Brad Wolf?
You got a point.
Kind of feel you, bro. You know what I mean? At the same time, you might know. This is the thing. Again, so much as I feel like got left out because I feel like something happened that got cut where they figured out that he somehow actually did figure out where Sylvie is, and they figured out where he is because they're pressing him so hard, and they're like, "Tell us where Sylvie is." I could see if they were like, we know you know what Dox is planning. Tell us what Dox is planning. I could see if that was the angle they came after him with. That's not. I don't honestly understand why their focus is tell us where Sylvie is. Did you find Sylvie? We need to find Sylvie. I know that the plan was that Dox and them were supposed to be going after Sylvie.
Right.
I get that. But I'm not even like completely caught up on why that is. And like things are happening in this show that like I feel like we're gonna get an answer to, but I'm not sure. And I just don't trust Disney Plus anymore when it comes to that.
Understand.
But it definitely feels to me out of like I love the banter and what they're doing and blah blah blah, but it feels completely out of place to me that they're so dead set on getting him to tell them where Sylvie is instead of getting him to tell them where Dox is and what Dox is doing and what that plan is. And so it turns into this kind of long drawn out, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
It never made sense to me at all throughout the whole episode was how does he know where Sylvie is? Like that never made sense to me for the entire episode.
And here's the thing. If the whole plan was we have to find Sylvie. All of this, like at the end of the first episode, when all the troops are going through the doors and Doc's going through, and B-15 is like, all of this for Sylvie? Is it, Slim? Is all of that for Sylvie? If that's the case, if he found Sylvie and he was supposed to report back and didn't, they never really made that clear in this episode. And that's not working for me. If the plan was we just need to make sure she's not on the sacred timeline, and then we can bomb all the rest of the timelines or whatever to save the sacred timeline, I'm cool with that. But nobody said that. You know what I mean? It was just like,
I thought they made it clear when he was at McDonald's at the end that that's what he did. He found her and then left, kind of abandoned his post to just go live his life.
I mean, he did, but he seemed to be. I mean, he did go live his life on the sacred timeline, but it seems to me that what he abandoned was the plan to go back and continue to be in the TVA and follow through with what that plan is. Like, he knew that Sylvie's timeline was going to get banned. What we don't know is, did he go and report that information back to Docs, and Docs is bombing all these other timelines anyway? What they're doing doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't understand why they went where they went in order to bomb the sacred timeline. That makes no sense to me. Why didn't you just do that from the TVA?
TVA, yeah.
Or something. Like, you went somewhere on a timeline to set up doors to all these other timelines to then send bombs to these other timelines to, you know what I mean, to like
to stop them from spreading, prune them or whatever.
I guess that was a way just to avoid the TVA being, I guess, able to keep track. Like, that's the only thing I can really like trust in order to make things valid is they went outside of the TVA into this particular place to do that. But that also seems to me though then that they basically used their temp pads. They were using their temp pads as a way to bomb, to set up the time so they could bomb them. So if their temp pads were able to be tracked, then the TVA would have been able to find them and would have known where they all were. So if in fact his temp pad doesn't block their trackers, then what are you talking about? Because it seems to me that all them temp pads was modified to block the trackers, even if they was really supposed to be modified to be able to be bombs to prune the timelines. They also seemed to not be able to track them as well. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? Like, I just again, like, I'm thrown off by this look, I like the scene, but I don't understand why the scene is happening under the pretenses it's happening, right? Like, why are we in here? You need to tell us where Sylvie is. You need to tell us what this temp pad does. You got somebody working on the temp pad. You have the guidebook and Ouroboros, and you need to know where Docs went and what Docs is doing. And if they thought that all Docs was trying to do was locate Sylvie, and they thought maybe it just doesn't make sense to me that he found her and then he abandoned wherever she was, and somehow they figured that out and knew that he had to be the person that knew where she was. Like, it just, like, none of that is making sense to me. And when the last episode ended, we didn't talk about it, but the only thing in the back of my head that was really a thing was, I know the phone was ringing and the elevator doors open and there's Sylvie. But then somebody pruned my man in his back. And who did that? And I feel like he should be concerned with that. Very much so.
Like, to me, when you get back, the first thing out of your mouth would be like, I'm so glad that worked, but I didn't do it. I didn't have a time stick. I did see Sylvie. She was at the end of, you know what I'm saying? But, like, somebody got me, and it wasn't me. Can't hear you, Sam.
I said no mention of that whatsoever in this episode. Of him getting pruned in the back.
I'm just exactly. So, like, I'm just like, I'm not saying they're not gonna get there at all. I'm just saying whatever route they're using to get there is about as branched as all these timelines right now. and I'm feeling like a 6 at the moment.
Your 7 is valid. Like I'm sorry. After you said the thing with the pad and my man didn't have, I'm like, oh damn, that went well over my head.
Right, like I'm not tripping. He reached into his little inner pocket and pulled the temp out and was like,
hey,
"What?
Go pull it up." Did he give it? Did he give it back?
I will run it back. Let me.
He definitely didn't give it back to him because he had it and he was like, "It'll take me some time, but I'll figure out what it." Like, how are you gonna run diagnostics and figure out what it does if you don't have it? And they're sitting in the super orange chamber, which also is kind of like, it's weird to me that I'm wondering if they're gonna come up with it while you're looking for that sin, that like everything about the TV
Loki took it back from Casey when they walked away.
So he Loki does take it back.
He takes it out. He takes it right out of his hands as they walk away to come to the interrogation room.
And they go to ask him. So then he takes it out and he's like, "What? But like, why we didn't like?" Casey said it definitely doesn't block you. But what does it do? My man was going to tell you.
Right.
Casey had that. It feels, I don't know, bro. It just feels like it's
yes. Loki, does take it out while they're in there and start asking him about it. So
what does this do?
Yeah. So
all right.
It clearly happened that way that we just said. Yeah, that's crazy. Do you agree, Jokes?
I think so. Like maybe that's why. Because when he said that initially, I was like, "Wait a minute, did I completely miss that?" But maybe seeing the handoff didn't have me questioning it as much. Because
maybe he just was like, "Don't nobody want to talk to you, Casey." You know what I mean? Like maybe it's just like supposed to be like a disrespect level for Casey, who is clearly the only other person in that building who might know what Ouroboros knows.
Yeah, or how to.
Because Casey got a glow up. If you recall, in the last episode, when Loki went to the pad and he ran into Casey before the thing fell and hit the ground and cracked the floor. Mm-hmm. Casey was like a janitor.
He was sleeping the floor.
Roughing the floor. Yeah. So at some point, my man got an upgrade to something other than janitor, because he didn't have like the little ink stain in his pocket or any of that when you see him in the past when the crack first forms. Mm-hmm. At some point after that, this happens, which means that like Loki is sewn into the TVA through and through. Like Casey should, for all intents and purposes, remember having a moment where he ran into Loki.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In the past, before they met in last season.
Yeah.
With all the Infinity before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just like they did with Obi last episode, with the whole going time and him remembering stuff as it's happening.
And they made sure that we knew that, which either means something's wrong and that is not him, or there's
but listen, it's the same thing as him meeting Mobius and B-15, because at the end of last season he shows back up and everything is different, and when he talks to Mobius and B-15, they don't know who he is, and he starts to run from them in the beginning of this episode, at the beginning of the last episode, when he's running from them and they're like, "We don't know who you are." When my man glitches back into the present, they don't bring up having a recollection of having chased this man. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Before. How long have they been pruning this dude from timelines? Because they talk about Loki's like they've been pruning Loki's from timelines
forever. Yeah.
And X5 Brad Wolf even brings that up during the interrogation. Like, no matter what you do, no matter what kind of, every time we've ever found you, you've been a loser, you've been the problem. Mm-hmm. You're not a hero, you're a villain, you're always the villain. So like, it just seems to me like there are loopholes in the the time traveling and the back and forth and stuff like that just aren't lining up for me, and that's making it much harder for me to enjoy this show. Like I have to tell myself, just shut up, just sit down and just watch.
And you think that's on purpose? Like you think they're leaving stuff out on purpose, and stuff will be revealed later to kind of fill in those gaps, or is it just something that might have just like the start of the episode just fell on the cutting room floor?
Half and half.
I mean, I want it to be that way, but like, you know, the first season they were filming that when 2020 hit and pandemic and all of that, and they had to reshoot stuff and redo things, and it was different circumstances. That didn't happen with this season.
Right.
So like, if something was supposed to be there and it's not, it just isn't. You know what I mean? So either they're gonna give it to us, or they're just not gonna give it. Okay. Like there's, you know what I mean? Like it is what it is. So I'm like, the thing about it right now for this show is like, all right, I don't see this being tied to Skrulls or any of that in any way.
Agreed.
Let's just let that be. Could it be tied to the Marvels in some way? They did drop, like right after they dropped the new trailer for the Marvels. You know what I mean? And so maybe. I'm also trying to like bear in mind that with all the time traveling, all the stuff that happens, is like remembering that this Loki isn't the Loki that did all the other things that we remember.
Right.
This is a Loki that only got as far as New York. She brings up to go to get their pie. You know what I'm saying? And he's just like, remember that time? Which is cool that he brings it up, but it's like, that's as far as it went. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? For him. Because there's no more to it than that. Now, what I cannot remember for the life of me is whether or not Thor: The Dark World happened before Avengers. But it did, didn't it? Or did it not? Because they didn't have all the stones.
Because that was the stones. Yeah, that was after.
Right? So that's what I'm saying. So when X5 brings up his mother, and I know that he saw the vision
in season one.
Yeah,
they saw it in season one. Yeah, they showed it to him.
Good call. So
they did show it to him that she died, right? And that was part of the sacred timeline, and that he was a variant that came from another timeline. He wouldn't watch
it. They didn't show it to him. He broke in and watched it. That's what it was. In season one, he broke in and watched it.
He watched like his whole life, like leading up to the Thanos.
Yeah.
Up to him getting killed.
Mm-hmm.
But I like X5 bringing up his mother sort of shouldn't feel to me this, like when he said it, and initially I'm like, dang, how you just gonna bring up my man mother dying and it being his fault or whatever. But he didn't do that. That never happened to this Loki. You know what I'm saying? Like
Loki,
this hasn't been there for him. So I'm also like, I feel like this Loki shouldn't really, like, it shouldn't.
Technically, you know what I'm saying? His mom would still be alive in the timeline that he was plucked from.
True.
So
correct.
Yeah. So
correct. Or would have been if that timeline got pruned or whatever. Like, but within that time, that timeline
got pruned. Yeah, right after they grabbed him. Yeah.
They grabbed him, brought him back to the TVA, pruned the timeline.
Yep.
So everybody in that timeline would be gone, but like, it kept him. But look, also though, still for me forces questions like, all right, if when you prune a timeline all these people die, why did you need to go and capture Loki in the first place?
You could have just pruned them right along with everybody.
If you was gonna prune the timeline, you just go in, you prune the timeline, call it a day.
Just roll out.
Well, I guess because Loki left
any of this.
But I guess because Loki left himself, because when he picked up the Tesseract, he used the space. He disappeared himself and ended up in that desert or where I was from season one.
He was still on the same timeline. They caught him in that timeline.
I don't know why I'm thinking that's outside of it. I get it. Yeah.
Arrested him as a variant, but I'm like, but everybody.
The timeline, he was just dying along with the timeline.
He changed the timeline. Now he's a criminal because he's the reason why the timeline got changed. but that's not really his fault because the Avengers did that, but they were supposed to do that, but he wasn't supposed to do what he was supposed to do. But they're the ones who went back in time and did it. Don't I have issues? And this is the thing.
Okay. It's giving me a headache right about now.
And no bull. I have a terrible headache right now.
And that's part of things with time travel shows. Like,
it's not even necessarily. It's just the way that Marvel has attempted to, I said this in the last episode. We got an explanation on how time worked during the Infinity War, and once they kind of cemented that, or was that? That was Endgame. Excuse me. And when it was kind of cemented, it's like, okay, if you go back to a period of time and you change something, it's not going to affect this current place. It'll just affect that branch timeline. But now, from what is happening, it seems like that explanation is invalid because it's time is one of the time is tricky, but it's like it's becoming a little bit harder to figure out right now.
So there's all right. I do not want to do math with y'all, but like time itself, right? In terms of like the idea, an Ouroboros is considered a paradox, which basically just means it's like an unsolvable puzzle, right? It's because it's just a circle, right? Time is a flat circle, they say, right? And so if you think about something like the butterfly effect, where like you go in the past and you do the slightest thing different, right? It's just the tiniest change back in your future on the same timeline, everything's different. You haven't necessarily created a branched timeline. You have changed the sacred timeline, if you will, in that under that circumstance. What I don't understand about what's happening in this show with the time loom weaving all the different branches together. So like when I look at the time loom and what the time loom is doing, it looks like it's literally taking time, weaving it all together and making one timeline, right? So all these other timelines don't exist. They're forcing it into one timeline. But then like if branches are happening, then beyond the loom where they have woven it all together, there should be branches coming off of it. And I don't see that, right? Because the sacred timeline is what is branching, right? So you have the main line and you have everything that's branching. And all of those branches should be like, take the time loom, turn it on its side, and consider everything before the loom like the roots of a tree. Since we're talking branches and whatever. Okay. Consider all of that the roots of the tree and like where time is coming from. The loom is weaving it all together. Once it's loomed together into one sacred timeline, now because of all the variants and all the different things that are happening and nobody's pruning it, the branches should be beyond that point. So either when they show the sacred timeline, it's so close to the beginning of time, quote unquote, that you can't see any of the branches, like none of the branches have happened yet, or they mess something up. And like these branches that should be happening aren't at least being shown coming from the sacred timeline when you look at it, when you go to the little room where where that's actually happening. And being able to travel. So when Loki time slips, he is supposed to only be time slipping within the sacred timeline. However, which is a thing that can happen apparently, but it's not supposed to happen in the TVA because the TVA is outside of time, which is why they can see, like physically see the timeline. Right? So now that I have wasted all of your time explaining that, right? Because none of it really seems to actually matter. I really think that what it's going to come down to with this show, and I feel like what this episode is telling me is just like, listen, all you care about is Loki and Sylvie, and where is he who remains going to come from? How is it tied in this minute? And how's that tied in the Renslayer? Like that's it. Like
let's talk about that real quick. Because we learn in a few scenes later, like we can just skip ahead or whatever. It is our show, it's what we do. we learn what's going on with the loom, where Obi figures it out. He can't like close the quote unquote like blast doors or whatever. So when it goes off, it's gonna kill everybody. And the only person that can do that was He Who Remains. But he's dead, so he can't do it. But
but here's the thing. That don't make no sense. Because it's the thing. When he goes in there to try to close the doors, the joint says that it's like an incorrect temporal aura or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like as if Ouroboros isn't supposed to be there, right? And he's like, he never ever had to deal with all of that. Miss Minutes took care of everything.
He only had to come down, what did he say, like once every
it's like a long
years, something like that. He would show up,
and do like slight maintenance or something. But she took care of everything. So the question is it her temporal aura that is the one that's not the right one to have access to do what he was doing? And at the same time, I swear for Lord, in the last episode, my man closed them doors. He flipped the switch.
Last door is the one that what's his name? So there was something I didn't get about that because, like, okay, are we comparing that outer door and then we have these shutters here? What are these shutters? Like, what is so different about those shutters that like
shutters started to come down the moment he was standing in the window watching Mobius out on the sacred time dive? Like,
it was dark in there. Yeah, he was closing the whole.
Those doors was coming down when he closed the doors. Though,
but were those like the shutters to the windows or like the master door that closed off?
I don't know. But pause. But didn't Loki open that junk himself too? When he went to the future, when he saw skin written on it, didn't he open up the shutters himself while he was in the room?
I think they were already open when he got there.
Are they already open?
I feel like they were open already. They might not have been. They might have actually been closed when he was in there. Because he didn't. I don't know, because he didn't see the timeline. He looked back and saw the word skin, and that's how he knew he was in the future, because it had already been written there, which means that dust stayed there for a long time. Something ain't right. But
they ain't got no janitors because my man
got promoted. I have no idea how far in the future that was, but it also meant that if that's the case, Loki had to survive, and he had to know he survived because he was in the future and seen the future, and the TVA was still there. But when he goes into the room and starts running, everybody's like, "Oh no, catastrophic event!" Blah blah blah. But if that's the case,
the blast shutters are.
Where the heck was Ouroboros?
Okay,
they're closed. They're like turned those so you can kind of see through them.
You can see through a little. Okay,
yeah.
Listen. So just listen. The suspension of disbelief is really, really tough in this show right now. And I'll be honest, I just wanted my man to find Sylvie and get a Big Mac. That's all I wanted. Just find Sylvie.
Well, in fact, he does find Sylvie. He does not get the Big Mac, but he does. They do end up tracking her down because they go back in with the good cop, bad cop. We're gonna, I'm gonna hurt you, interrogation, the whole routine. It works. They get the information. And they go to the 80s, like in Oklahoma, somewhere, something like that, where Sylvie is...
on a branch timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yes, branch timeline, where they find Sylvie just working at McDonald's. She's not hiding at, like, the end of the world or some calamity or nothing like that. She is working the register, and they have their moments. Was this jokes? Let me ask you, was this moment of them finally reuniting, like, did he give you what you needed to see out of their, them reuniting?
I don't know. Like, I feel like there would have been, if maybe Loki wasn't there on universe ending business, maybe they would have had a little bit of a deeper, different type of conversation. Because Loki was really just about the business when he got there and just trying to figure out what it was that she knew or whatever, so they could figure it out. But I mean, I don't know. For one, I want to know how long she's technically been there in that branch timeline, because obviously she went from showing up there to saying, I want to order everything on the menu, to now being behind the register working there. And she doesn't seem like she's super new there. So I'm kind of interested to know, like, how much time actually passed while she was there. Clearly she was like, I guess at some point Loki was going to end up showing up to question her or just try to find her or whatever. but like I'm just eager to know how much time passed there, because I feel like maybe she had moved on. Maybe, you know what? Maybe she really didn't care that much about Loki at that point in time. Because
she just, you gotta remember that, like, she got yanked from her own timeline as a child who was like in love with the Valkyries or whatever, and then they pruned her timeline, right? And she been on a run her entire life, which is hundreds and hundreds of years, because she's a god. She don't age like other people age. So she just, you know what I mean? So like, she has, when you've been doing that for hundreds of years, she's been secretly hiding in catastrophes and outweaving the TVA, trying to find he who remains so she could kill him. And then she found him and she killed him. And her working at McDonald's was her Thanos moment. I'm just gonna go sit on the phone.
Yep.
I'm about to just go. I finally can chill. So I'm about to just go
burgers.
Like, that's what made it so perfect. It was so simple and so easy, and she was just enjoying being able to stay in one place, not be on the run, have people know her name, know who she is, meet people,
get some friends,
things like that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think that this boy who, like, her timeline didn't get pruned, and like, he comes out to talk to her at the end of the shift, and she's like, "Are your parents coming to get you?" And he's like, "Yeah, they're coming." And and it's weird. It seems like he maybe has like a little crush on her, something like that. Listen. Twitter was flipping off. They think that manager, the little manager dude at McDonald's, the little boy, they think that's Mobius. Twitter was going ham, like, yo, what if that's Mobius? Because they never look at each other. They never have like eye contact. Like, Mobius walks in, the dude walks in the back, and then when they talking, sitting down. And I will say this, I don't know what part of Oklahoma it is in 1984, but it's real chill, because my man is definitely in like a TVA jumpsuit, looking like straight out of jail, and ain't nobody looking at them like,
hey, with the bomb collar thing around his neck.
You know what I mean? Just
maybe it's because, like, we know from the comics, like, this was where after Ragnarok, the Thor's whole place like settled out. Maybe this is not out of the ordinary for them. Maybe some Asgardians be walking in there, order some Big Macs.
I mean, maybe on that timeline, you know what I mean? I suppose it's a branch. It could be very different there, but yeah, I don't. It does seem a little weird to me that, like, you couldn't give me how Loki at the beginning of this episode in Mobius, how they found Brad, knew where he was, where on the timeline, when on the timeline, you know what I mean, whatever. But at the end of this joint, you could give me her chilling on her car, messing with He Who Remains temp pad, and this little moment with this I can't think of his name, but this boy, like, hey, your parents coming to get you, da-da-da. I'm like, man, are his parents gonna be somebody? I bet you his daddy in witness protection. Like, I don't know, dog. Like,
listen, before we get to the MCU, somehow we need to write.
It's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen.
Listen, before y'all destroy like our main universe and make it whatever, just tell us who witness protection.
Hey, look, after the Kang thing is over, that'll be the end credit scene. They finally give us that after all this time.
I will laugh my ass off in the theater if that was the end credit scene at the end of the last Avenger.
I would cry tears of laughter, don't, if they do that. That'd be so terrible. Oh,
I'm gonna cry tears of joy.
We finally got the answer.
It'd have been nice to be like, you know what? It was Stan Lee, like, he had a hidden cameo, and they just somehow kept that joint under wraps, and like that was like
that
dog.
That would bring everybody.
That would
bring everybody. Yeah, but while they're in Oklahoma, Brad starts freaking out. We got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. Like, he does it to the point where, like, Mobius and everybody watches, like, all right,
wrong with you?
Like, something's obviously up, my guy. You know what I'm saying? He gets it out, and they end up getting it out of him pretty much through Sylvie forcing it through him by reading his mind and chanting him. And we go back to that end scene of episode 1 with Doc's taking everybody through the portals. And what it looks like they're doing is, we've mentioned it earlier, they're pruning all these timelines that are popping up out of nowhere. They're going in, dropping bombs, detonate them, and they're going to do that to Sylvie's. So she's forced to kind of jump in and help, even though she doesn't want to. And, you know, we get a nice little action scene of them going to where they are and stopping it from happening. Pretty much in a nutshell. Gage, how was the action for you in this episode's big action sequence?
I mean, it was all right. I wasn't like, I mean, it was cool.
Okay.
You know, like my expectations were like nil. It was all right. You know what I mean? Like they fought a little bit and threw some people and stuff, and you know, some people got Loki threw a pruning stick at some dude, poor dude, and hit him in his neck with that joint. Right, he was about to go through a door, and I don't, you know, I feel like my man was like this close to dying in 2 different timelines.
Yeah.
like real close to dying in 2 different timelines.
Ooh, what does that feel
I
like?
know, look, it was cool. They just, I don't know, man. Look, it was like 150 troopers, and it was like 3 of them. And they just showed up. Again, why did this man have to chase Brad Wolf down the hallway?
Dog,
They showed up.
I feel like Loki should have been bodying people. Like Sylvie was through a couple of people, but I feel like my man Loki was just like straight hand-to-hand combat. Like he's just a normal human being out here. I'm like, dude, you should have like just
They
Spartacus.
should have held hands while they were hiding behind the boxes and had none of that.
Just been done.
Like, it's not about the action for me. It's about Docs being like, they're here. Oh, Baroness. Continue your work. Don't let them get us. Press the button. Hey, no. Somebody, why? We've been compromised.
That thing you did earlier, Loki, shoot it at her and shut her up.
Yeah, dog. Throw a green blast at her mouth, dog. Like, I don't. It just be like stuff like that is like, okay, the fights was okay. We just didn't need any of it. These women just walked up and held hands and blew the green smoke out of everything. Why didn't y'all just do
and
that?
they teleported in there like so undetected.
Dog, listen, and failed a lot. Like a lot of timelines clearly got saved.
Oh,
a lot of timelines.
I don't think any of them.
I think very few survive, and that's one of the issues that I have for this episode. They're trying to sell this whole thing where they're putting in these bombs and they're blowing up all the timelines. It's hard to feel that impact without actually seeing like the explosions and the death when you're looking at Missile Command on the screen. Like I just don't feel it the same way when they're showing.
But they were really looking at the screen and like crying, dog.
Yeah, like I'm like, I'm sorry, like I don't like they're gone, but like that doesn't make me feel anything as a viewer, like feeling that emotion watching. Like it's just a bunch of Atari looking squiggly lines on the screen that are, you know, backtracking things deleted. I get it, but it doesn't hit me the same way.
But here's the other thing. I don't feel like this show has done a good job of making the impact feel important. Like when B-15 is around, like no, it's billions of people. That's billions of lives. But it's like, nah, but all them same people live on the sacred timeline. You know what I'm saying? Like I know that they are variants of people on the timeline, but it's like you have to do something to make me feel like it's the same thing. Like when you're like, that's billions. No, sweetheart, that's not billions of people. That's multiple trillions of people because just our Earth has like 7.8 billion people. All them timelines, and we're not just talking about Earth. I know we think about
all the rest of it.
All the galaxies, nowhere out there, and all these other places we've seen. Yeah, like that's all gone in these timelines.
But is it? What? I don't know. It doesn't necessarily feel like, because they work so hard to make the sacred timeline with that name, the sacred timeline. So this is where like the original people are. This is where whatever, and this is like if they made a different decision somewhere, this is a thing that happened, or somebody, you know what I mean? Like, so these branch timelines, these things that aren't supposed to happen, these Nexus events or whatever they are, that then are becoming different versions of a line that already exists, where all of these people live or lived. You know what I'm saying? At some point, they haven't quite sold the idea of the actual loss of life, because in those timelines, there's nobody to mourn them, right? Like the timeline doesn't exist, so it's like that timeline never happened. It's not
as
like
the show goes on, they're just moving to other timelines, so you're not seeing the devastation that has been happening from other timelines. So it's just missed.
It's just like, all right. I mean, I understand why B-15 is saying she's so upset. And why she might feel like her role is important. Like, I do think the conversation with Mobius was important, like in terms of Loki asking him, like, don't you wonder?
That
like,
was,
you know,
that was,
and him saying like,
no,
I'm not worried about if it's bad. I can handle. What if it's great?
Yeah.
What if it's great? Like, again, like Brad Wolf. Like Brad Wolf is living the very much like the Matrix life of like my man being like, nah, I want to be put back in and like make me important. I want to have a lot of money and make me a movie star. And it's like, all right, I want to be able to taste steak. You know what I mean? Like he's having that moment, that kind of a thing. And knew enough to go like, let me do it, but let me do it on the sacred timeline. But does that mean that he went and pruned his old self? Did he prune the Red Wolf that is in that timeline? Did he go back and figure out exactly where they snatched him from and pick his line up from there? Did he go there and murder the original Brad Wolf? Like,
we don't know, and we're not going to find out. That's just where I'm at with that.
My man's like, yeah, I'm just down here living my best life. Why are you mad at me? Because I feel like you murdered somebody to do it. You
murdered somebody to do this good life of yours
here. Even
if
it was you. like you, you know what I'm saying?
Still technically murdered somebody.
Something. Again, there's just a lot that's left, and so like, I've had to make the decision after watching this episode that I'm gonna have to figure out how to let all that go, and just be like, I just want to see who the f- is Miss Minutes. What is Renslayer doing? Is Miss Minutes a Kang variant? Is Miss Minutes a Ravonna Renslayer variant? Is it an Ouroboros variant? Is Ouroboros a Kang variant?
Well,
that's what I want.
Maybe next episode, maybe next episode we get those answers, because the episode closes with Casey's device signaling in on Renslayer's location. It's pretty much how the episode goes off. So now they know where she's at. So
how she get lucky enough not to have her
timeline pruned? I was thinking the same thing. I was like,
I was too when I was looking at it. Like, why is there one like?
So I'm like, she about to just be in the TVA. She's gonna be still at the TVA in like some hidden ass area that ain't nobody knew about. It wouldn't surprise me after seeing Kang's face on the wall, and that joint was covered up by something.
Because she's not in like the straightforward one on the Sacred Timeline. Like she's in one of those curved one that's branching off.
I thought they were gonna say something like, "Oh, you don't want to know where she is." Like it almost led they were gonna say something like that, but it didn't happen. I don't know. So she's probably on. Like I know that Marvel's doing this partnership with like the McDonald's and a couple of other companies, because I guess they're going to be in here. Maybe that some of that stuff is probably some of our hints to something like this. I don't know. Maybe she's at Burger King.
I know Miss Menace be sending me Facebook Messenger messages though.
You mentioned that last week.
And
I'm
like, you ain't even in the show.
I'm gonna say no cipher yet. No cipher
yet. Out of my actual timeline, because you're not in my. You know what I'm saying? Like what are you doing?
Of her, but nothing yet. Do we see Miss Minutes next episode?
Dog, absolutely.
I don't think so. I don't think
so. Definitely. We're gonna see her because they tracking down Renslayer now, right? So that we left off, we found Renslayer. after all of what happened, that's the only thing there is left to do is go find her, right? Sylvie's in her timeline. That joint didn't get pruned. I guess Dox is dead. I don't know. Did they arrest? They arrested Dox, right?
They arrested Dox. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So somehow they got to break free. Like somebody got to get loose. You know what I mean? Like it got to be like a little. But like,
with them having Dox,
like
do we get answers to some of those questions that we've had? Now they have Dox captured.
I think Dox is just. I think the only thing that's gonna happen with Dox is like they just. Dox is indoctrinated. Like she's just like, nah. Our job is to prune the timeline, and that's what we gonna do. I ain't playing this game with y'all. Whatever. I'm not hearing none of that. Nothing. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. There's nobody in charge. I'm in charge. I'm the person who runs all the people with the guns and the movement and the weaponry. This is what we doing. And that's what she did. She took her whole police force, her little TVA time force, her Power Ranger time force, and they was like, we about to go shut all this down. Y'all get your pruning shears. We about to go trim these branches out. And that's what they did. And they mostly succeeded. You know what I'm saying? Which also means that now it should relieve some of the stress on Ouroboros and trying to get the loom straight. I mean, I'm sure there's still some extra stuff going on, but like,
right.
But this is the other thing I don't understand.
It's fine now. We're not gonna all die.
Listen, this is the other thing I don't understand though.
You might be saying what I'm thinking.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. It's not gonna be what you're thinking. The reason why the loom is having such a hard time weaving everything into the sacred timeline is because there are too many new branches. That's what they're saying. It's like overloading it because there's too many branches. Right. What that means is all those branches are before the sacred timeline is becoming the sacred timeline. That doesn't make any sense, dog. It doesn't make sense because the sacred timeline doesn't exist. And every branch we're seeing is a branch from the sacred timeline. But if you look at the loom, the sacred timeline don't start till after the loom.
After the joint goes through it.
The loom be overloading, trying to squeeze all the extra timelines into a sacred timeline if they don't start till after the loom.
My question within that is, are the branches going to keep growing? Like just destroying all of them right now, they try to do just is only a band-aid while the things going out of control.
It's like weeds.
Like it'll just keep on.
You spray it until you can get rid of the majority of the weeds. You have that one or two that pop back up, and you gotta.
What is the thing? There's always been branch timelines, though.
Right.
The TVA has always been going in and pruning them. When there wasn't a loom to control it and make it one timeline, He Who Remains and all the other Kang variants had a multiversal war. So, like, this is a thing that is not gonna work. Like, what is happening in this show can't work because Kang and all his Kangs got
right. They gotta come. Yeah.
Well, this can't work. You know what I'm saying? They have to lose this because otherwise we'll get no Kang. So the loom's gonna fail, or this is all part of the plan, or whatever it is. They gotta go get Victor Timely. I know that when they go get Victor Timely, huh?
I was like, we still haven't even touched that yet.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And I don't know if maybe that's where Renslayer is. Maybe Ravonna Renslayer is somewhere there. But you can see in the trailers that like there's a scene where Victor Timely is in the TVA. Like he looks like he's in the little Ouroboros area. Like you see him in the joint. And it makes me feel like if you look at the little machine, go back and watch that end credit scene from Ant-Man. The thing that he like reveals looks like an old like time loom. It looks like an old steampunk time loom. And I feel like they're gonna be forced to have to go get him to bring him to help. His aura might be the aura that is the thing that's missing. And I feel like they're gonna have to go get him to the TVA in order to fix it. And that's where the whole joint starts.
Yep.
And that's where the loop is. That they don't have no choice but to go get him to bring him in to fix the loop. And then it starts all over again. Because he's going to be like, look what I can do with time. And then some version of him is going to have to try to stop all the other versions of him. So I think literally what we're seeing is the beginning of that loop. Again, but the beginning of that loop.
Okay.
The very end of it into the beginning of that loop.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's where I think we are.
I'm not mad at that. You agree, Jokes?
I'm good with it. I'm just we'll see where this goes. I feel like we're gonna get more confused before we get to the end. But we shall see.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that. All right, so gentlemen, are we still at our score? Jokes, you still at 8?
I'm at a 7 after the couple of things that I thought about. Like, honestly, it's until sometimes you talk it out. Until you talk it out,
yeah,
because it's like everything for the most part I was cool with. But then we start throwing some of these small little tidbits in here. I'm kind of like, yeah. So I'm okay. I'm at a 7.
All right, at a 7. I'm pretty sure Gage is still at a 7. He might have come down to a 6, but he's at least.
I mean, you know, it's I'm still at a 7. Like there is a lot I like about the episode.
Same.
It's just hard. Like I can't, you know what I mean? But it's just like I just dinging that joint left and right. And some of those things I feel like are gonna be more of how I feel about the series as a whole than necessarily the individual episode. So like right now, I'm at a low 7.
Okay. 7.1, 7.2.
Hey dog, that's 7 playing limbo, bruh, right now. Like you want another like weird time reference. I don't know. Like, yeah, my 7 is definitely playing limbo.
All right, I'm still at a 7 with it as well. All right, so we have 7s across the board for the second episode of Loki season 2. Y'all know the deal. We'll be back here next week with episode 3. We'll see if things, change for the better or the worse. But either way, we're here to talk about it. So until next time, we'll catch you later. Deuces.
Loading snacks.